Sooners fans won a national championship for the first time since 2000. Mark Rogers TV on the 2012 edition, and here to tell you whether Oklahoma is okay or, again, overrated. Preseason number 1 in 2011. They're clearly disappointed with 3 bad losses down the stretch. Preseason top 5 this season. Let's take a look. At quarterback, Landry Jones, a Heisman Trophy contender last season, and again this year. He clearly disappointed last year. 29 touchdowns, 15 picks. He's got to do much better than a 2-to-1 ratio, and most of those picks, clueless decisions by Landry Jones. This quarterback feels the heat more so than most quarterbacks. He is not an elite passer. He's very good. Those glittery stats should be gaudy in this league against Big 12 defenses. Landry Jones, overrated clearly. To the running back position, he gets a lot of help, and at wide receiver as well. First, with the running backs, Dominique Whaley back from injury, 627 rushing, 9 touchdowns, and he's backed up by Roy Finch, who ran for over 634 receptions out of the backfield. This is really the interesting group when we talk wide receiver. Listen to this production and this potential. First, the production with Jazz Reynolds, 41 catches, 715 yards, and Kenny Stills caught 61 last year. Okay, the big potential is with redshirt freshman Trey Matoyer, who had a huge spring game, and the Penn State transfer, Justin Brown. This guy caught 35 passes at Penn State. 35 equals 100 at Oklahoma, and Justin Brown is different from the rest of the receiving corps. At 6'3", 210 pounds, he could be a huge playmaker in the passing game at Oklahoma. The offensive line has been marginal for Oklahoma standards in recent years, and we don't see an upgrade there with only 2 returning starters. Okay, now let's get to the real sore spot. It's on defense, and baby bro Mike Stoops is back from Arizona, where he couldn't cut it as a head coach to take over the defense, and of course he built those championship defenses of the early 2000s under Bob Stoops. So what's he got to work with? Well, last year Oklahoma gave up 40-plus points in all 3 losses. They were torched in the passing game at more than 240 yards per game overall. Up front, they lose 2 defensive ends to the NFL, along with Corey Nelson, who moves on to the NFL, and Travis Lewis. Lewis and Nelson, the 2 big leaders at linebacker on defense, they're gone. They will be severely missed. Oklahoma rotates a lot of good players up front, led by Jamarcus McFarland. He's the defensive tackle who's probably the best in the Big 12. In the secondary, Demontre Hurst is a really good player at cornerback. He had 11 pass breakups, and Tony Jefferson really fills up the box score. He had 7.5 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, and 4 picks. So Oklahoma looks to be good up front in the secondary, but the secondary depth is not great. This team is really good, of course. The talent is the best across the board in the Big 12. But with West Virginia and TCU now in this league, there's 2 more hurdles to pass along the way to a BCS National Championship game. Of course, they don't have to deal with a conference championship game, but when we're talking talent, the interesting team in this league is, of course, Texas, because the talent on defense is jaw-dropping. If they can figure out the offense, Texas is going to be a sleeper if the Longhorns can, in fact, be called a sleeper. Oklahoma has not been able to compete with the very, very top elite in recent years. Why? Trench play. Offensive line not tough enough. Defensive line gets pushed around. The defense porous when comparing them to the elite teams in the country, i.e. last year, LSU and Alabama, and in recent years at USC and some of the top teams at Ohio State a few years ago. Oklahoma, really good. Will they win the Big 12? Will they contend for a national championship? We'll tell you that next week. In the meantime, would love to hear from Sooners fans about the Big 12 and college football in general on Mark Rogers TV.